The question being asked this year is, if you were a newly elected member of Congress, which issue would be your first priority and why? We want to answer this question by saying that clean drinking water is a basic human right, and water crises all of our country have taken away that right. Therefore, if I were a newly elected member of Congress, I would focus on the lack of safe water in poor neighborhoods and that the national government should take charge. The examples of the government's lack of attention are all around us. The broken pipes in Jackson, the contamination levels in Flint, and even the Baltimore citizens have been in a bind with water for years. The government needs to make the issue of clean drinking water the first priority or there will be consequences. Jackson, Mississippi has been dealing without safe drinking water since the summer. The main problem is that even though Mississippi receives funds from the national government for disasters like this current water crisis, the state doesn't use them in Jackson.
Since 1996, Mississippi has received federal funding for drinking water systems. However, Jackson has received allocations for federal funding in just 2 of those last 25 years.
To fix this problem, the government needs to spend the money to fix the Jackson pipes. But they are now mishandling the funds in the whole Jackson water crisis. Jackson has always had water problems, and the residents have dealt with the results for years. The plant is barely functioning because it doesn't have enough operators as it needs. Many of the pipes need extensive and expensive repairing. The funds that were given to the problem were not enough, as the whole of the pipes needs replacing, requiring billions of dollars of which they don't have to fix the whole system.
My name's Blakely Fender.
And she is a
Jackson resident and a Millsaps professor, has been relying on alternate sources like jugged water that they bring home for a while, even though it may be costly. Although the water crisis hitting national news helped the crisis get better because it forced local officials to do something, the government has had trouble in the past, and these problems are nothing new. Officials need to get over their differences and look at the solution in a new light. Millsaps has also struggled with the crisis. They have had to get water bottles for the students, and the cafeteria must cook differently. But the biggest problem is when the water pressure goes out because they can't take a shower or flush the toilets. They must bring in portable toilets and showers that aren't bad, but not what you were paying for at a college and inconvenient. Now Millsaps is planning to build its own water tower and well.
Okay, so Millsaps has been talking about this for a while, so they're building their own water tower and digging their own well. And I wish we had done it earlier, is all I can say. We've just gotten to the point where we can't rely on the Jackson infrastructure, so we need our own infrastructure.
Flint, Michigan is yet another city with water issues. The city had decided to switch the water supply for a cheaper alternative, which had corroded the water pipes, making the water virtually undrinkable. Lead had infected the drinking water in an area that has just under half the area's population living in poverty, and a majority are African American. Officials didn't believe that this was a big deal early on and decided to wait to see what would happen. This wasn't a good idea, as soon multiple bacteria began showing up in the water. Examples like E. coli and total chloroform bacteria. This made the water undrinkable, causing many residents to be without water. Jackson and Flint aren't the only places without water. Baltimore, Maryland residents are also struggling. These poor residents of Baltimore seem to always be in the middle of crisis. Similar to the previous crises, Baltimore also has a long history of broken pipes and just general water issues. This crisis is the cause of why citizens have to give up and sell their personal items to be able to afford the water bill. Meanwhile, big corporations with lots of money have many unpaid debts and continue to get off scot-free. It's been a long time since the city has helped the low-income families with water bills.
Deliberately not funding necessary and long overdue upgrades for our water infrastructure hurts women, children, and especially the poor and people of color.
Some people say that the water should be controlled by the city. For example, the governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, says that the water should be controlled by the city because city officials are there in the city and they know what needs to be worked on their water.
The water struggles in Jackson were specific to the incompetence of this administration and this mayor.
But because it has already been shown that places like Jackson, that they don't have enough money to even help their water regulate their own water, this is a good reason why the central government needs to step in and make sure that everyone's water is safe and clean and install more regulations.
I think they're going to have to cooperate. They're going to have to put aside their political differences and their own personal differences they have with each other, and they're going to have to cooperate. I also think they're going to have to think about this in a way that they have not thought about this before.
People cannot live long without water. It is a basic necessity for everyday life. The fact that many communities across the United States are suffering because of this gross negligence is terrible. The water issues across the country is something I think that Congress should look more into. It is affecting thousands of people across the USA every year. Congress needs to make more regulations, more specifications, and even have more people working on these issues.